Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to continue on with the series of, the log I have of asking people at my workplace questions. Specifically, do you believe in God and what do you think of Christ? So last time we went over, I can't accept God-hating homosexuals, and the other person who said no one can really know anything, so we make heaven or hell here ourselves. And he was talking about specifically, nobody really knows what happens after you die. Today we're going to go over two questions. The first one, not two questions, two answers, I guess. The reason this person does not follow the Christian faith was because they said all paths honor the Great Spirit. If we are sincere about it, as it is based on our perspective. So this person was a pagan in both sense. He had the pagan belief system in, and he recommended to me the book, which is 10 Commandments, which I got and I read, and then he didn't want to discuss it with me. And he was part of a motorcycle gang called the Pagans. Now, this man was in his 50s now, so I think he'd done his time, something like that. But he put that to me, and I followed him around, not harassingly. We engaged in conversation. He followed me too while we were working, and we kept going for probably about 45 minutes. And a friend of mine also followed us because he was just interested in the conversation. Because this gentleman kept positing to me absolute truth, that it's relative. It was a relative absolute. So what do I mean by that? He's saying this is how things are. That's the absolute. It's your perspective. So he drew a picture of me of a circle, and he said, here's how you see it, here's how they see it, and here's how they see it. And if you're sincere, and you honor the Great Spirit, whatever that is, then that's what you do. And I read the Witch's 10 Commandments, and it's very impersonal. And it does put a lot of, effort, and it puts a lot of emphasis on the elements about, a whole karmic cycle. I mean, it's basically New Age, the New Age movement, where we are all one, and we'll all be united to one anyway. That's also the same problem that atheism has, where if we're all going to be one anyway, what's the point of forgiveness? What's the point of reconciliation? What's the point of doing anything right when everything just kind of self-corrects anyway at the end? You and I are both not people, at least not in the long run. I mean, the Indians have the karmic cycle picture pretty good, especially in Jainism, where life is like just a giant cyclical regurgitation of life. And the pictures they have in hell are people suffering, not individuals. Like me, I have a name, and I am an individual, and I'm suffering in hell. Now, you get your individuality stripped away from you. You are just a person suffering, because when you come back, you could be anything. So you lose your personhood. So how does a karmic system have a value on a person who's not named? Like, the whole thing just kind of boggles the mind. This gentleman was very interesting because he said he believed that, but he didn't live it. And the reason why I said he didn't live it, because he had a temper. So he had a good work ethic, and he liked to work. He did not like people who didn't. He actually lost his job because he yelled at somebody for falling asleep on their piece of machinery. And it wasn't quiet either. It was like they kind of went at it. Him and the other guy got fired. So did he give respect to his fellow man for honoring the spirit the way he saw fit? Perhaps the way they honor the spirit is by enjoying life as much as you possibly can. Whereas he honors the spirit by work ethic. Now, the problem with that is you put immense judgment on your fellow man based on your perspective. That's relativism, and that's basically you put the judgment of Godhood here in yourself. And in so many words, I try to tell him that, and I'm like, what do you think of Christ? And he's like, well, I was raised a Baptist. I don't believe so much of the stuff that was written is accurate. Of course, me being me, I'm like, okay, which stuff specifically? He's like, it's been a while since I've studied it. I don't have anything off the top of my head. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But after that conversation, and it was deep enough, but it wasn't extremely taxing. He kind of went away from every time I tried to approach him and talk about it again. That's okay. You have to give people space again. You can't argue people into the kingdom. But I just wanted to give something to think about. This is it's a book called Tactics by Kokol. I forget his first name. The whole thing is even if you can't argue people into the kingdom, which again I agree you can't, you give them something to think about, and that's the equivalent of like a pebble in their shoe. So as they walk, they're going to be feeling that. So as he judges his relative perspective, which obviously outworked in reality, didn't work out well for him. It's very tough to have that kind of respect. Like, if a suicide bomber is very sincere about blowing up your family, do you give them dignity to do so? I mean, it doesn't work when you take it to the extremes. It just doesn't. What if my answer to your honoring the Great Spirit is to put a bullet in your head? I mean, that's a problem, right? How do we rectify that if we're honoring the Great Spirit? So that one was roughly unlivable, and unfortunately, I'm not able to talk to him as much as I would like to. So the conversation kind of stopped right there. I tried a good bit, but he had a lot of layers of defense and answers, and that's good. You should have layers and answers about why you don't go down a particular path. But obviously the one he said he espoused to was it didn't look like it was lived as well. And it couldn't be if you think about it, because relativism posits relativism is the absolute truth. It's just that philosophical system will just collapse in on itself. The next one is, and these are not just people, it's like this person is a follower of Christ, but their fiance is not. So they said regarding their fiance, because I was trying to see how many answers I could get to the question, what do you think about God? Do you go to church? Like that kind of thing. And why not? I wanted to know the answers, the legit answers. And so her fiance says, God already knows me. I'm like, that's quite open-ended. Like, I need follow-up questions to that. But that's it. That's all you got. God already knows me. That seems a bit like a cop-out answer. Like, you're already too sinful that you can't pursue greater things. You're already too lost that there's no saving you. It kind of cuts off your ability to proceed to any kind of higher level, even by your own standards. Because God is the ultimate standard. The ultimate transcendent. I had a guy at work, we were discussing about God, and he left the church because I might discuss this later, he said that they never taught him how to go through the Bible and actually follow it. There was a lot of preaching messages there about how much power you should have, how good it should make you feel, and how strengthening and emboldening it should be. But no one ever sat down and showed him what to do and how to study. That's discipleship, and that does get lost in the Western church. Unless you go to like a small group and you got to seek out after that. And even you might not find somebody that's actually worthy of teaching you. You won't see them as that kind of person, that kind of aim. But back to this person's fiance. What? No, they can't see that. Oh no! Oh no! Yeah, I just noticed. What are you doing? Yo! I'll be here from now on. Anyway, I apologize for that. That was embarrassing. So that person's like third hand. I can talk to her, but I can't talk to him, but I can maybe talk to him through her. Something like that. So how do you do that? How do you third hand encourage somebody to seek after something greater than themselves that'll help them build them up? Because ultimately what we're looking for is the answer to mankind's dilemma of finitude. We live and die. We're here. And the great unknown is not necessarily before, because we're not, we already went through that, whatever that was. But the after, it's the scary part. When your eyes close and don't open anymore, what happens after that? Is your life meaningless? Does everything in between, the story of your life, mean nothing? Or is there something beyond? And if there's something beyond, maybe we should pay attention. Maybe we should pay attention to the things in this world that give us hints to the beyond. We have the book of nature. We have the book of the law, or the book of scripture. And those things are worthy of paying attention to. And the undergirding of what you believe, as far as your perspective on the Great Spirit, which I don't think it's people around a circle. I think it's mainly people on the globe looking up at something and aiming at it. Like, aiming is, I can't think of a better way to describe people's journey. Like, you could choose different paths, right? I like martial arts, that kind of thing. But you're still aiming to be a better version of whatever that is, in an absolute sense. And we have this vision of it. Everybody does. I think of what a good student looks like, or a good professor looks like, or a good cop looks like. You don't need somebody to really tell you what that's supposed to be in perfection. You already have sort of like an image of it, but it's not embodied. So what we try to do is we try to embody that. That's the transcendent perspective. It's kind of etched in our mind for the image that we hold currently for ourselves. And this, I did a whole talk on the whole Nine Inch Nails song, Right Where It Belongs. There's a line in there where he says, if you look at your reflection, is that all you want it to be? Well, maybe it is. Maybe you don't want to get better. Maybe you don't want to jump into the void that will scar you potentially and make you better when you come out of it. Equips you for the things you don't understand. That whole sense of adventure and danger. But if God already knows you and there's no hope for you, well, the best I can do is invite this lady to church and ask her to bring her fiance with her. Maybe that'll give him something to aim at. So anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe to see more in the future. I apologize for that gentleman back there. I'll see you next time. Take care.